Welcome to another edition of Walton Entertainment. Today we'll have more news, information, and entertainment from your local hometown. Well, the car is packed up and we're ready to go. Welcome to another adventure of Through the Camera. I'm your photographer, Daryl Everidge. So grab the family, go grab a camera, and let's get ready to grab some memories.
And we're on the road again. Our first stop is New Bern, Georgia, the Johnston Dairy Farm, where we meet up with Russell and Carrie. They show us all about homemade cheese.
We've always milked cows here, well, since 1977. My father started in '56, and then he built the dairy barn over there in '77. And I bought him out in '92, and we always shipped milk, you know, the traditional way. We'd send it out on the bulk truck to Publix or Mayfield or whoever. So now we're making little small batches of artisan cheeses, mozzarella, burrata, scamorza. We make bocconcini, but it's kind of labor intensive, so we try not to make too much of it. These are most of our milk herd. We milk 78 Holstein Jersey crossbreeds. We have a few Holsteins and a few pure Jerseys, but most of them are crossbreeds. We raise them all here on the farm. They're grass fed and pastured, obviously. And we have to have the cows for the milk to make the cheese out of. We bring them up twice a day and milk them. Right now we're averaging about 55 pounds of milk per cow per day, which I think if you do the math is around 8.5 gallons. And I'd say about 10 to 20% of that milk, 10 to 15% of that milk goes to making cheese. The rest is shipped out on the bulk truck and either goes to the Publix plant or the Mayfield plant or the Kroger plant, just depending on what day of week it is.
Oh, that was some great cheese. Check them out, johnstonfamilyfarm.com. Excellent stuff. So we're back on the road. We're headed to Anna Ruby Falls, going through Helen, and I see this big truck of inner tubes, and I'm thinking, what? Inner tubing? A river? So we have to stop and check it out.
I'm gonna raise a fuss, I'm gonna raise a holler about a working all summer just to try to earn a dollar. Every time I call my baby, try to get a date, my boss says,
no die, son, you gotta work late.
sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, but there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
Only wish I had time this weekend to get on one of those inner tubes and go down that lazy river. But hey, we're back on the road. Anna Ruby Falls. That's our next stop.
About Anna Ruby Falls. It is part of the Chattahoochee National Forest. It comprises of 1,600 acres inside the forest. We're located north of Helen. North of us is Tray Mountain. Tray Mountain is one of the larger mountains in Georgia, and that is where the water comes from that makes up Anna Ruby Falls. Anna Ruby Falls is very unique as far as waterfalls go, in that there are two separate creeks that come down off of the mountain side by side. One is Curtis Creek, the other is York Creek. They both make up Anna Ruby Falls. Anna Ruby Falls Falls is named after Anna Ruby Nichols Payne, a young lady whose father, Captain John Nichols, moved to this area from Milledgeville shortly after the Civil War. Out riding one day, the story goes, on horseback around 1870 or so, with his daughter Anna Ruby on her horse. He discovered the falls, and due to its beauty and the beauty of his daughter, he named the falls for her.
Wow, thanks guys for joining me for another edition of Through the Camera. Sure glad you went along with us today as we visit people, places, and things. Join us next time. Till then, this weekend, next weekend, any weekend, go out there and have some fun. Grab the family, grab a camera, and go grab some memories.
Jesus' feet were growing weary as he journeyed on his way. So he rested at the well side, a comfort in the heat of day. There he waited for a woman black with sin and bound for hell. When she arrived, he plainly told her, what you need's not in the well. He's still waiting by the well, and he's holding out his hand. If you'll drink this living water, you won't have to thirst again. He's still waiting by the well side, knowing you'd be passing by. Take advantage of this moment. He's not gone, he's still waiting by the well. Are you tired of being thirsty, even though you've had your fill of the water that the world gives? Does it leave longing still? Well, there's good news down by that well side. A woman's voice rings loud and clear. She said this man's changed her forever. If you need hope, you can find it here. He's still waiting by the well, and he's holding out his hand. If you'll drink this living water, you won't have to thirst again. He's still waiting by the well side, knowing you'd be passing by. Take advantage of this moment. He's not gone, he's still waiting by the well. He's still waiting by the well, and he's holding out his hand. If you'll drink this living water, you won't have to thirst again. He's still waiting by the well side, knowing you'd be passing by. Take advantage of this moment. He's not gone, he's still waiting by the well. He's still waiting by the well side, knowing you
Right here. I got paralyzed 22 years ago next month that I was hit by a drunk driver head on. I spent about 2 months in the hospital, basically fighting for my life from the surgeries and the car crash. 2 weeks before I had my car wreck, I told my dad I wanted to be different than anybody else under the sun. And he told me, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. And here I am a month later fighting for my life. You know, and after I came out of my coma, I started realizing what had actually happened. I was laying in bed, hospital bed one night, and I was crying, and my dad's like, what are you crying for? And I said, what happened? Why am I like this? He said, you asked for this. You don't remember this, but you asked to be different. And he said, it's not, you didn't ask to be paralyzed, but you asked to be different than anybody else. You got your wish, now it's your turn to go forward with that. And from that day forward, it's been a heck of a ride. I never looked back. The reason why I started doing this was because Birch Big Adventure. With Birch Big Adventure, the kids with that, they either have chronic or terminal illnesses. And these kids they're fighting for their life. And the stuff that I've done, I've realized that it's grown attention, and people have actually been willing to donate money for charities. And so I said, well, why don't I do something silly enough to get that much more attention for the charity? So I've been doing this for about 3 years, and the whole Guinness thing was, I contacted Guinness and see if anyone had ever done it, and they said no. And I said, well, can I do it? And they responded with the word no. And like I said, I don't like no, so I asked them why. And they decided they would go ahead and create a category for a single individual doing this. They have people that are disabilities with multiple wheelchairs pulling something, but no one's ever done it with a single individual. So not only is this a world record, but this is setting a world record today. So it's Guinness gave me a certain amount to do, and that's what I'm actually pulling more than they've asked for. So they've actually officially got to pull 4,000 pounds or more. I'm pulling a little over 46 today. You want to go ahead and pull the vehicle up front? You want to get it pulled up?
You want to get to this part, or
yeah.
you start it from there?
No, it starts there.
We're going to do something stupid again. That's what Michael and I do. He calls me up and says, we're going to do a horrible idea. I'm like, let's do it. Whether he wants me to climb up a mountain by crawling next to him, or we're going to go for yet another record for a Spartan race, or another obstacle course race. So this is yet another one that's just showing what is possible. We have a charity together called More Heart Than Scars, and our team, the Dirtbags, and what we do is we want to disable the word disability. Michael's an adaptive athlete. I'm an adaptive athlete. Together we're overcoming challenges and recognizing their abilities. Not, when people talk about Michael, I don't even think about Michael as being in a chair. A lot of times I even forget. So I don't say that's Michael, the guy in the wheelchair. I say Michael has more heart than scars.
Look underneath him. Make sure he's not going to hit the disc with the back.
No, he's good.
Okay.
Go! Pull the rope behind me. Pull the rope behind me. I'll get it. Go ahead.
Go, Michael.
No, you can't.
Got it, Michael!
All those babies, Michael, keep them in your thoughts.
Move it! Everyone back out! Move it!
Move it! One more! One!
Come on!
One!
Come on! You
One!
got it!
One! Oh! Do not stop! Do not stop! One! Do not stop! Two! Move! Do not stop! We're holding it, we're not giving up, we're going. Let's go! Move! Come on! Move it! Move it!
You got it, Michael. All right, let's go. One. There you go. Let's go. You go. One. Let's go. There you go. Let's go. There you go. There you go. Keep going. Keep pulling. You got it. You got it. Come on, Michael.
right at the mill.
Tell us what you're thinking right now.
Disney World. Oh, that's not one of our sponsors.
I'm tired. It hadn't sunk. I'm hurting. Thank everybody. I mean, y'all made me go faster and harder.
We love you.
Just
The hardest part was not being able to.
We're sorry it was so hard, Mike.
It was so hard to
I got
watch
stuck.
you and not help.
I got stuck, and everything every time I pulled, my hands just wanted to let go, and I can't even feel my hands right now.
God, we wanted to help you so bad. We're just.
It was
did it.
I know, it's in us to help you all the time.
But it's done.
It was so
Yeah!
Get it, buddy.
Good job. I'm so proud of you.
Look, Mike.
Who's hugging me? You are.
A little bit of all of us.
Yeah. Can I get something to drink? Some water?
Yeah, can we get some water, please?
Water!
Some Gatorade.
Water!
Get some oxygen.
I got a bottle of Jack.
Anybody got a water?
The International Horse Park in Conyers, Georgia, was transformed into something you might see in Spain. People from near and far gathered to run with the bulls.
We wanted to bring a running with the bulls type experience here to the U.S. because we know that it's very hard for people to make that trip over to Spain. It's very expensive, about $3,000 per person. You got to have about 10 days off of work, and for most people, that's just not possible.
Tell us what are you feeling right now?
Severe anxiety. It's hard to process information. I kind of feel like...
You're not second guessing yourself.
No, not at all. Never second guess myself.
I'm looking to have a lot of fun and to not be run over by a bull.
I mean, they said the one guy got clapped, so we're hoping that doesn't happen. We make it all the way around. Nobody hits us, so.
I don't know, it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing, I guess, just an adrenaline rush. I'm not really an adrenaline junkie or anything, but I thought it'd be fun.
I've always wanted to do it, so I'm super psyched. I know it's going to go quick, but...
I just always wanted to do it. It's on my bucket list.
How nervous are you right now?
I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous.
Think you can outrun those bulls?
No, but I can get out of the way.
It's as dangerous as you want it to be. So if you want to hang out by the fence or in any of these nooks here, it's not really all that dangerous. But if you get out there in the middle of the track with those 1,700-pound bulls stampeding towards you, it gets pretty hairy, especially if you end up on the wrong side, either the front or the back of the bull.
Reporting from the International Horse Park in Conyers, I'm Daryl Everidge.
I am very, very thankful for all of you who showed up tonight for this event. And I want to welcome you to the Praise Center. I want to thank our lead pastor, Gary Scroggs, for allowing us to hold this here. And hopefully we will be able to get this out to the community even if we don't have a whole lot of people show up this evening. My name is Rick Baker. I'll be serving as your moderator this evening. We have a series of questions we're going to ask our panelists, and lots of expertise in here tonight. So I'm sure that we will cover the topic of school safety from one end to the other. Without further ado, I'm going to ask our panelists on the stage and those in our audience, if you would stand, introduce yourself, tell us who you're with.
Thanks for coming out. My name is John Webster. I am a lieutenant with Walton County Fire Rescue in the training division.
I'm Suzanne Barrett. I'm with Walton County EMS. I'm a shift supervisor and also a training supervisor.
And I will need y'all to hold the mic just a little closer so folks can hear you.
I'm Lieutenant McClung with the Monroe Police Department. I'm the training manager at the department.
Bill Owens, Assistant Fire Chief, City of Monroe Fire Department.
Carl Morrow, Fire Chief for the City of Loganville.
Richie Sinclair with Piedmont Healthcare.
Good evening, everyone. Nathan Franklin, Superintendent, Walton County School District.
Todd McGee, Superintendent, South Circle City Schools.
Joe Chapman, Walton County Sheriff.
Scott Wisden, I'm Captain, Walton County Sheriff's Office over Administration.
Tyrone Oliver, South Circle City Police Chief.
Dick Lowry, Assistant Chief, Loganville Police Department.
Hi, Lieutenant Joseph Cantrell. I'm over the Community Policing Division for Loganville and housed inside the workout of the school at Loganville. Thank you.
I'm Dustin Peterson. I'm also with Loganville Police Department, and I work in the Community Policing Division.
Darren Vinson, Captain with the Walton County Sheriff's Office, Youth Investigation Division.
Hi, I'm Lori Wilburn Bailey. I'm with Advanced Behavioral Health Systems.
Okay, we also have members of our panel in the audience. If you would please stand and introduce yourself, tell us who you're with.
Anthony Harris, Monroe Police Department. I'm the SRO at Monroe Area High School.
Gina Meadows, I'm Director of Student Services, Walton County School District.
I'm Callan Moore. I'm the Public Relations Officer for the Walton County School District.
Chip Underwood, Assistant Superintendent, Walton County School District.
And Todd Hilton, Safety Coordinator and Technology Director for Social Circle City Schools.
Two more on the end over here.
Jody Carter, Walton County EMS.
R.J. Lott, City of Monroe Fire Marshal.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to begin our forum this evening by watching a video.
I'm Lieutenant Davis. And I'm Lieutenant McClung. And today we're going to talk to you about how your public safety officers are preparing for school violence and active shooters.
Up until just a few years ago, law enforcement, fire, and EMS did not train together at all. We were three separate entities charged with doing three separate things. The old-fashioned way was that SWAT would make entry into the building. They would eliminate the bad guy and then search the building, which could sometimes take several minutes to, unfortunately, several hours. And if there were victims on the inside that were bleeding, unfortunately, they would bleed out. They knew something had to be done, and they knew that the system itself was broken. So Homeland Security, along with the University of Texas, came up with a national guideline in which law enforcement gets there first, obviously, eliminates the threat or at least drives the threat away from the building or barricades the perpetrator. At that point, we now are able to get fire rescue inside that building quicker. We triage the patients, we figure out which victims need to go first. We then get EMS involved, and EMS either transports the victim via ground or via helicopter to the hospital.
The point of the training today was to get the law enforcement officers, the firefighters, and the EMTs to work together in a more efficient manner. See, cops are really good at going and stopping the bad guy. EMS is really good at treating and transporting, and fire is really good at triaging. What we want to do is be quicker, smoother, and more efficient with those lives.
One of the main things that I got out of today's training was just that communication. My guys are really good at what they do, and fire is really good at what they do. But if we're not on the same page, you have two people doing really good things, but the results could be catastrophic in a child losing their lives or an incident not ending the way that it needs to end. So opening those lines of communication, whether it is through the radio or just tabletop exercises to find out what do you guys need, how do you guys want us to respond, would be super important.
Communication is the key to saving lives. If we have the shooter down in the building and we have a secure area for firefighters and EMS to save lives, but nobody outside knows that, then we have children that are bleeding out and people that are dying because we are not getting that message outside in that communication.
So in today's training, it's more advanced than it used to be in the past. Therefore, where officers and law enforcement is able to go in and find the shooter, clear a hallway where fire and EMS can go in and assess the situation while there's still maybe an active shooter inside the school, inside the building.
We're light years ahead of where we used to be. Used to, the training was focused on go in, find the shooter, stop the shooter. Our officers are trained well beyond that now. Now we're actually focusing on the command level and how they communicate, that communication element we were just talking about.
And speaking on communication, how did that actually work out when y'all did unified command between the different agencies?
Well, in the beginning it was tough for police because police aren't really good at unified command. However, the firefighters taught us how to do it real well, and we're getting much better at it.
So tell me, what's the importance of diversity of training?
Diversity of training is real important. And what that means is Monroe Police Department's not just training in a vacuum, where they're just training themselves. Because what happens is we get stuck and we get stale in the same old way of doing things, and we don't ever expand our knowledge base. We don't try new things. If we bring in other agencies, let's say Barrow County Sheriff's Office like we did today, and Lieutenant Lateral walks with me and talks with me, we learn things that they're doing that we're not doing and things that we could do better, and he learns things that he could do better.
Training in different locations is super important because it opens your eyes that because we do it a certain way, that there are multiple ways to do and get the same solution, because not every incident is going to be this is how it was done. You got to have backup plans to backup plans, and by taking training at different locations, whether it's an in-service at your department or an in-service at another department or going some other location, it will open your eyes that there are more ways than one to get the results that you're looking for and have a satisfactory result at the end of your mission.
So, Lieutenant, tell me, how realistic is the training we did here today?
The training today was as realistic as I could possibly make it. I had simunition rounds that the officers don't want to get shot with. I had role players, about 15 or 20 of them. We have smoked up hallways with fog machines. We had fire alarms that go off. We had poor radio communications inside the building. And we had people working together that never worked together before. So that's about as realistic as I can make things at that point in time. However, it'll never be like the real thing.
So realism in training is super important because it allows that officer to kind of feel what an incident might be like, and it allows that officer to realize how they're going to feel, how they're going to react, what do I need to do, what do I need to overcome. But there's no true way of making that happen in training. We can train with everything that's out there, and until that person's in that situation, they don't know. And we train so that the officer knows how they're going to react in a situation should they find themselves in that.
The United States military spent an awful lot of money trying to train the soldiers to prepare for the chaos that is war. We're taking a little bit of that training mentality and trying to put it into this training. You can do some, but with the limited resources we have in law enforcement and the public safety community as a whole, that's where we all depend on each other. That's why we had Barrow County Sheriff's Office here today, and we're in the city of Monroe in Walton County. We had Walton County deputies here. We have people from outside our jurisdiction coming here to train because we're going to rely on those resources, because in a mass chaotic situation like that, it's not just going to be us.
There's going to be multiple agencies coming in to assist.
Everybody.
For mutual aid.
Yep, we would have agencies probably as far as Atlanta coming to help, as far as Athens to the east.
And everything should be pretty much the same across the board as far as training and command goes.
All of the basics are the same. There may be some small nuances that are different, but by the time those major agencies from outside start getting here, hopefully there's no longer an emergency threat. The situation now is a life-saving operation to save the children or persons that have been injured during the actual shooting itself, and not the bad guy.
Is there anything that we're doing at law enforcement and public safety for the mentally ill people?
All supervisors at the City of Monroe Police Department have attended and been trained on crisis intervention training. The CIT, or Crisis Intervention Team training concept, involves people who are in a crisis state and have some kind of mental illness. And what we're doing right now is trying to teach the officers how to deal with that, to de-escalate situations and hopefully catch them before they get to this point.
Mental health is a big challenge in law enforcement, and Bexar County Sheriff's Office takes great pride in the training that we take, and we have many officers that are CIT certified to handle people who may be having a mental crisis.
So, Lieutenant, tell me, is there anything in place in the school system or throughout our community for teams of students inside the school? They see a threat, hear a threat, any way they can report it?
Right now, the City of Monroe is supporting and trying to get everybody on board of the See Something, Say Something app. It's an app, a free app that somebody can download to their smartphone. And on the See Something, Say Something app, a person can go on there and they can report crimes directly to their law enforcement agency and not just to the school or the school staff.
If a student was watching this today and was asking themselves, well, how would I report? Our doors are always open as school resource officers inside the school. Our number one goal is to make sure that they're safe and the entire student body is safe. So I would urge that student, if they hear anything, see anything, whether it's on a wall, in a book, on social media, whichever platform it may be, that they report it. They don't have to have their name in the report. We just want to make sure that you're safe and the person who is dealing with whatever incident's going on in their life, that they're also safe and that our community continues to be safe.
I challenge anyone to find the last time a child died in a school fire in the state of Georgia. However, numerous children have died just in the last 10 years in the state of Georgia in school violence and active shooters.
So tell me, really, what does fire have to do with school violence and school shootings?
Well, see, about 50 or 60 years ago, the schools, the parents, and the communities got tired of children dying inside those schools. So they took extreme measures and steps to make sure that didn't happen anymore. They put fire retardant carpet in the school, fire retardant walls in the school, fire retardant roofs in the schools, fire retardant desks in the school. There's nothing in that school except what the children bring in that's designed to burn. If we want to make sure that we prevent school deaths from violence and active shooters, we're going to take those same extreme types of measures as law enforcement officers.
Becoming something that's kind of glamorous to these people that are doing it. They're doing it more for glamour. They know that they're going to be put on the news. The media is going to be all about it. And that's one reason, they do it. They know that's going to happen. They're going to kind of go out in a blaze of glory. So us hitting the situation head on is key for us to, one, put a sense of stability with the parents of these kids that are at the schools. If they know that our training is stable and ongoing, that sense of relief is going to come to them. I know we've had some Bexar County Sheriff's deputies here today. With my kids being in Bexar County schools, that helps me as a parent know that, hey, I know what kind of training their SROs have. So that gives me a sense of relief. While I'm here in Monroe working, I know that my kids are going to be taken care of, in other schools and other counties.
School safety is a complex issue that involves many systems, agencies, organizations, and individuals. And for the most part, these elements work well, and the school systems are safe places for our children, parents, students, administrators, faculty, and staff. Our SROs also play an important role in maintaining that safe environment. And in the event of a crisis situation, the various responding agencies are crucial resources in those events. A safe environment is essential to the ability of students to focus on the material being presented, to learn new information and skills and apply the newly attained knowledge and successfully interact with peers, faculty, and staff. In short, A safe environment is necessary to success. To be safe means to be protected from risk, danger, or injury. And obviously no place on earth is completely safe, but the perception of safety is important. When that perception is threatened or shattered, the ability to learn is at best impeded and at worst destroyed for the duration of the threat. The duration and intensity of the threat will determine how much time and effort are required and to what degree that sense of safety can be reestablished. The sources of threats are too numerous for us to list this evening, but the most apparent one is violence, which includes bullying, fighting, stabbing, and shooting. Thankfully, the organizations represented here this evening have developed protocols to respond to these and other situations. The purpose of this forum is education and exploration. Student safety requires a multifaceted response. I want to thank the various members of our panel for participating this evening. And we're going to go ahead and begin with a series of questions. Before I do, I would be remiss if I did not recognize our Youth Advocacy Board members who are here this evening, and I certainly appreciate you being here and your participation. So I'm going to address this first question to our school systems. In the various schools, what measures are currently taken to maintain student safety?
Thank you, Rick. I'll start us off, and I know we've got a lot of folks that want to chime in, so I'll try to get right to the point. That's a loaded question, and that's a question we could probably talk 2 hours on, just that one question. First of all, let me say, if my child's ever in an accident on the road, I would hope they would be on a school bus. I can tell you that. School safety in our schools starts with the sheer design before kids ever show up, and just not to go into any detail, but the sheer design of our schools is an awful lot of time, resources, and your tax dollars are spent on school safety. The design, the compact design, especially in our newer schools, safety features. School safety plans, we spend an awful lot of time on our GMA approved in partnership with all the response agencies to get their buy-in and their preferences in our school safety plans. The consistency between multiple schools that maybe one time wasn't there, now is there in terms of what you see in our safety plans. Certainly we're going to talk a lot about that tonight, but some things we're not going to talk about because they're part of our plan should the unthinkable happen. We can go into a lot of side things that certainly matter, but it's not what it's all about, and we'll get to the question eventually. You know, we've spent the last 20 years, for example, buying video cameras, just that one topic of video cameras. And in the last 6 months, we've probably spent more money and more resources upgrading every single video camera in every single facility in the school district just in the last 6 months compared to the last 20 years. You're going to see things like safety vestibules and things like that in all of our schools. Hopefully by January, getting the resources and supplies out to do that is certainly a task. Just that piece right there is probably $1 million price tag. So we have to balance those wants with obviously budget concerns and freeing up tax dollars and things like that to make it number one. Safety certainly is number one, but GMA approved plans, SROs, obviously a huge part of our safety plan, our safety plans themselves, video surveillance, all that is awesome and very important, but the most important aspect of school safety and what we tell our staff members is real simple. It's human vigilance. And if you read, whether it's the Secret Service report, I know there's new guidance out on threat assessment, things like that, but school safety comes down to a lot of things, but primarily human vigilance. And that's the awareness of not letting that something doesn't seem right or someone that doesn't seem right, not letting that go, but vetting that process with your team, for lack of better words. And we'll get into that, I know, more in the following questions.
Thank you.
It's always real easy to follow Nathan because he does such a great job answering questions. So certainly we've done some of the things, some of the details, cameras for instance. We've always had cameras at our high school campus, but in the last 2 years we've added cameras at all of our campuses now have the cameras and the buzzer systems to get in, and again, we do the little things. Everybody has to have an ID. Visitors wear an ID. Staff members wear an ID. Keeping doors locked, both external doors and classroom doors while the teachers are teaching, and just a variety of drills. We're meeting tomorrow with our local chief and folks from the Sheriff's Department to plan a drill like we just watched. We're going to have an active shooter drill sometime this fall, and so we're working with the folks to get some details on that. Thank you.
Thank you. SROs have been mentioned already, and we have some of our SRO officers here this evening. What are your primary roles inside the school? If our SROs could answer that question.
Primary safety is, of course, is to make sure that our job is to keep the school safe. Is to make sure that we work collaboratively with the school system and law enforcement and the community and the students to make sure that they are aware of the problems and things that we can do as a law enforcement agency to try to do everything that we can to keep the schools safe. Our job goes from anywhere from directing traffic in the morning to directing traffic in the afternoons to walking through the building, also doing classes with doing classes and meeting with the school staff to do what we can to educate them on the fact that it has to be safety over convenience and things of that nature. We work together with the other agencies as well too. We're doing a lot of things like, of course, active shooters been mentioned already, but for us on a day-to-day basis is that our main role and responsibility is that we work closely with the administrators in the school system to help them with any type of, whether it be a law enforcement problem, whether it be a school disciplinary problem. Of course, we are not disciplinarians, but when they have a problem in the school with a student or a parent being irate or whatever, we're the first one that they come to help try to resolve the problem and things of that nature. Our goal is to be vigilant, be seen in the hallways, to be seen in the cafeterias, be seen when there's large movements and things of that nature. If we see a problem that needs to be addressed, of course we go to the administrator and address it with that administrator, whether it be leaving doors open from the outside perimeter and things of that nature, whether it be a student themselves that may have a problem. Our goal, one of our main goals, is to make sure that we gain a rapport with those students as well as with the staff and with the administrators and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that we do when we do gain that rapport with the students. It just shows that we want them to be able to connect with us so that we can connect with each other. You'd be amazed on a day-to-day basis that the students in the school come up to the resource officer and they share personal information with them, and I also share with them when they may see something that's going on that could be dangerous, whether it happened on the bus, whether it happened at school, or what happened in that community. So the main thing is that we need to show them that our goal and responsibility as SROs in the schools, that we're role models, and I don't take that word lightly, is that we're there for them and to be resources in many different ways.
Okay, thank you. Officer Cantrell, you have anything to add?
Well, Captain Vincent, of course, summed it up beautifully with some of our roles. That I would add that it's changed a lot since I've been in the school. When I first got into it, it seemed like we did the triad approach, and with that, we were more interested in developing a connection with the children and hoping that they would accept officers and it's really changed a lot. I've noticed over the years. Unfortunately, it's because of the safety issues. I feel our role has changed a lot to where it's about more, to be completely blunt, and with what we're dealing with here in the discussion, it's really just to have an armed officer there that's highly trained, that in this situation is going to be there quickly to eliminate any threat. I noticed that. And it's not that we've changed as far as interacting with the youth, that's still most important, but I noticed the training has changed, of course our investigations as well, but the real beauty of us there is having, and the bluntness to go with what we're looking at with the training, is have a highly trained officer there that knows the school really, really well. I've been in that school for my particular school, and I think that's so important. For 15 years, so long that I know every single crack in the sidewalks. I know every nook and cranny. I can just walk around and I can detect anything at all that's out of place. And it's because I've been there so long. I've been there longer than the principals, a lot of the students, the teachers. And that's what I think's been really, it makes a difference. And I think it's having an officer know that school. Like, when you saw the response there, a lot of those officers are going to have to feel their way around. We know everything about that school. And some of the training that we're doing, that we're coming up with some innovative stuff is to help address that where people do not know the school. We're working on something we think is going to be revolutionary, like some of the other stuff that we've won some national awards with. We're doing some VR training to where we're going to video the entire school, and then we're going to be able to put the goggles on other officers, and they're going to be able to see areas of the school. And if there was ever, let's say, an incident somewhere, we'd be able to pull that up on video, put the goggles on. They would know the layout of the room like they were standing in there. So those are some things that we're trying to do, is take it to the next level as well. So.
Thank you. So really y'all are everything from prevention through intervention?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Again, to the school systems, what are the primary threats to school safety that you see faculty and the students facing?
Well, like Nathan said earlier, school buses are really very safe places. And even though we've had shootings in schools over the past few years, schools are still considered very safe places, relatively speaking. And we're certainly proud of that. So we're training for worst scenario, what we're talking about tonight, but most of the threats to students that we deal with are still students trying to do things they're not supposed to do or bring things on campus that they're not supposed to. And so we have our safety plans, as Nathan mentioned earlier, that cover the gamut of what we have to deal with. But still, the most prevalent danger is conflict among students bringing drugs, or driving out of the parking lot in the afternoon with kids that haven't had their driver's license very long. So,
just to add what Dr. McGee mentioned, and this may sound silly, but the number one thing in our school safety plans that occurs the most often you would never guess, and that's weather issues. That may sound real light. Obviously, active shooter situations gets the press, it gets the attention. It's, the last I saw, about a 1 in a million kind of thing, but it's a serious thing, and it's on our minds, and we see things on the news, and we plan for it, and we spend dollars towards the prevention of those kinds of things. But student safety, student driving, school bus accidents, students, if you want to call it bullying, and those kind of things that go on during the school day. One thing that I thought of as Dr. McGee was talking, when we talk to our staff members, I go around to every school, pre-planning, talk to every staff member, and we talk about school safety right off the bat. And when I talk about what's next, what's coming, preparation, human vigilance, things like that, and even just facility updates. I've already mentioned the vestibules that we're going to be finishing up in our schools that don't have them, things like that. And those are nice. Buzzer systems are nice. It's part perception. It slows down any perpetrator. And I remind our staff, while active shooter situations can happen, realistically in Walton County, guess what those buzzer systems are really there for? What are they more apt to stop? And the answer is a spouse. Nobody thinks about that. That's probably 5 to 10 times a year in Walton County. Those kinds of things that don't escalate any further, but those are really the types of things that you see on a more day-to-day, month-to-month basis. Not just Walton County, that's anywhere.
And I really appreciate y'all's comments. And when I was tasked with putting this together, I thought long and hard about the title. And I chose Community Forum on School Safety specifically because I did not want to focus entirely on school shootings. Because thankfully, even though they do make the headlines and they splash across the screens way too often, they're still very rare, relatively speaking. And so I do appreciate the fact that you talked about other issues besides school shootings. Because I know that y'all face issues on a daily basis that don't have anything to do with a weapon. So I appreciate your input there. How are, we've already talked about, or y'all have talked about personal vigilance, being aware and being alert. Perhaps this is a better question for the SROs. What do you look for specifically to identify potential threats?
That can be a lot of things. That can be a domestic problem between two spouses. We deal with that a lot at schools. Last year in the elementary school itself, the sheriff's office answered 241 calls to service for the elementary school. Now, I'm not saying all of them were calls or threats, anything of that nature, but a lot of times in elementary schools we get calls where parents are, having domestic problems or child custody problems, and of course they come to school and they want to see their child, or they want to eat lunch with their child, and it may be something, some type of legal issue where they can't, and things of that nature. So those are the things that's just one of the things that stand out. Of course, it happens sometimes in the middle schools, not much in the high school, but in the elementary schools itself. We deal with things of that nature. We look at things with, students come to school upset and things of that nature. Breakups between boyfriend and girlfriend can be a problem where a student may be homicidal or suicidal because of things of that nature. So those are some of the things that we look at. It doesn't happen a lot, but I just want to, you're looking at, if you ask me what are some of the things we look at as threats and things of that nature, those are a lot of things that are concerns to us as well too. And and sometimes it could be, sometimes it could be school staff coming to school with personal problems and stuff like that. And these are things that are out of the norm, but it does happen. So when you ask me, what do we look at as things that are considered to be threats, it could be just what a person is going through in their everyday life.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, as far as threats, are you referring to school shooting or overall?
In general, broad.
Of course, if you look at everything with school safety, which is, you said you wanted to kind of touch on as well, other issues. Of course, medical issues are the #1 cause of students having, deaths in schools. It's medical issues. Matter of fact, just today I dealt with a young lady who was having an allergic reaction, and we had to call an ambulance up there, and and we've had someone pass away at the high school. Right in my arms after I've been doing CPR on her. So medical issues is the #1 cause of death in schools across the nation. Of course, transportation is up there, and Dr. Franklin mentioned that as well, and we have a really fine transportation director, and Mr. Clark, who's very safety conscious. I've been witnessing his work over a decade, and it's wonderful. And so we're really good there. So that's 2 of the top issues. And then of course, I think as far as students getting hurt and dangerous, as far as, of course you got just fighting, and you get a little more of that with the bullying that goes on. And of course that leads you to suicide, which comes from bullying, social media, and that can lead to fights at school or suicide at home. So that's the 3rd issue that you look at. And of course, with homicides and such, which school shooting falls under, there is a specific, when you say what you're looking for, there's of course a profile, which I won't go into and delve what you're looking for, what you expect, and what the Secret Service has identified, and which is quite often very remarkably close to what it turns out to be. We have that, and anytime we encounter students of concern, we work them up through a profile that Secret Service has developed, and of course you have years of experience as well, but it's through communication, and it's through tips. Of course you're looking at tips, and I briefly mentioned that. I've talked to school systems around the nation, and they've called for information about some of the things that we do. Walton County is way ahead of the game. We've been way ahead of it for several years, and that's one of the reasons you see the audience is kind of light here tonight, and that's a good thing, because that shows people are thinking we're doing our job up here, because if it was packed, they're more likely concerned. And so I feel like we're doing our job, or there would be a crowd in here. And so that actually makes me a little happy. As far as the tips go, we have a tip reward program, which is absolutely unheard of, where they actually pay money to students for tips. That's something that I came up with a while back. We started at Loganville High School. Now they do it throughout the whole entire school system, and that actually generates tips. I mean, we pulled guns out of schools because of that tip, and so it works. And then we've got an app program that we just installed, and basically I know of over 200 schools across the nation that has followed that and who's called and followed us. We were doing that years before anybody, and everybody just now is starting to do that. So because communication and getting those tips in is number one. So that's the things we look for and how we get them.
Okay, thank you. In most of our recent school shootings, mental health has been where the finger's been pointed, whether accurately or not. What are some of the more common mental health issues that you deal with in the schools? And we also have a representative from Advantage. I'd like to hear from you on this as well. Perhaps you could start us out.
So we are seeing a lot more people. This isn't just in Walton County or just in Georgia, but across the nation. Suicidal ideation has increased among teens, adolescents, and older adults. It tends to be the areas that are having increases with that right now. One of the things that we've cautioned is that a lot of times as soon as something like this happens, everybody assumes it's a mental illness. And the data actually shows that folks with mental illness are more likely to hurt themselves than they are to hurt other people. But I think sometimes it's hard to believe that sometimes people are making poor choices without it being a mental illness and hurting other folks. And so sometimes that sort of paints all of our clients with the same brush. So we want to be careful about that. But there is an increase in suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts in the state and across the nation right now. I think that there are access to just more lethal means for kids than there have been in the past. There's a lot more drugs that are easily available. There's a lot more ways that you can hurt yourself. But when you talk about the ways that kids can sort of hurt each other, when you talk about bullying, there's such a larger platform for that with social media, with camera phones, where anything that you ever do wrong can be across the nation in just seconds after it happens. So we have seen more people that are coming in upset and unable to know how to manage the fact that they feel like that they're being bullied or being embarrassed or shamed or treated in some sort of way. When we also have folks that are showing up that or getting calls from places and referrals about kids that are having just more behavioral problems in general. So figuring out how to manage those behaviors so that they're not doing things that are impulsively hurting other people or hurting themselves.
In the school, sometimes you encounter students who have very severe mental health issues and they can't be educated in the schools. That's rare, I know, but for the sake of our guest here, what steps are taking place when you encounter a student that it's just not safe for either them or other students for them to be educated inside the school system?
You've been watching Safety School Forum. We'll have the conclusion of this forum next week on this show right here on Walton Entertainment.